Hello there, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views magazine on European politics. Since the attack by Kremlin troops on Ukraine in violation of international law at the end of February, the Russian leadership and state media have described the fighting as a special military operation. The term war is banned by the Russian regime. Fines and prison sentences threaten those who use it anyway. Now, however, Vladimir Putin has also gotten the wrong tone, and the opposition is showing him off for it. On Thursday, the president said he did not want to continue turning the flywheel of the military conflict, but to end the war. For the first time, the Kremlin chief described the fighting in Ukraine as a war. A political opponent from St. Petersburg has now reported him for it. The opposition city councillor Nikita Yuferev submitted his complaint on Thursday evening to Prosecutor General Igor Krasnov and Interior Minister Vladimir Kolokoltsev. In his letter, he refers to a law passed in March that punishes alleged false information about the special operation with high penalties. In his own words, Yuferev does not expect Putin to be sentenced, he just wants to expose his mendacity. In response to this tweet about the ad, Yuferev said he received numerous intimidating calls and messages from Putin's supporters. The German sea rescue ship CI-4 has reached the port of Livorno with 108 migrants rescued in the Mediterranean this week. In the Italian city, rescuers disembarked people on Friday and handed them over to the authorities. The Regensburg Association CI had rescued the refugees, including unaccompanied children, from unseaworthy boats in the central Mediterranean and off the Libyan coast. According to the rescuers, about 20 people suffered chemical burns from leaked petrol. Because the authorities in Rome then assigned the CI-4 to the distant port of Livorno in Tuscany, it took several more days before the ship could complete the mission there. Another German ship has to go further than planned with refugees and migrants on board. The Rise Above of the Dresden Association Mission Lifeline headed for the port of Taranto in Puglia, where an arrival was expected on Christmas Eve morning. Actually, the ship arrived with more than 80 rescued migrants in Oceania in Calabria, and thus close to the place of action. But the authorities changed their mind then. According to the helpers, they are running out of fuel. We're not sure if we'll make it to Taranto. That's what Mission Lifeline tweeted. Italy had recently assigned distant ports to several rescue ships. The NGO suspected tactic of the right-wing government, which is against the deployment of civilian rescuers. Our fears that rescue capacities are being deliberately withdrawn from search areas seem to have been confirmed, is what Mission Lifeline wrote. CI also criticizes this. After Italy used to delay rescue ships for several days before assigning a port, CI spokesman Gordon Eisler sees a new method. The strategy is changing, but the goal of the authorities remains the same: to make it more difficult to rescue people in order to reduce the number of arrivals in Europe, he said. At the same time, the association is concerned about future missions. Because CI has received significantly fewer donations than hoped, the next missions are on the brink. Greek security forces have broken up a gang of smugglers suspected of systematically bringing migrants from Greece to Western Europe. So far, 18 suspected members of the gang have been arrested. That is what the police department said on Friday. In the past few months, the smugglers have brought migrants in an organized way from the Greek-Turkish border river Evros to Athens. The people were then hidden in the gang's accommodation and provided with fake passports for flights from Athens to Western Europe. According to the information, this cost up to 5,000 euros per person, depending on the quality of the forged documents. And according to the police, the smugglers also offered a cheaper route. The migrants could have alternatively started their journey from Athens over rough terrain to North Macedonia and continued from there. The cost in this case is €2,000. Gangs of people smugglers keep bringing migrants across the Greek-Turkish border river Evros. If they succeed, the people will not be officially registered by the Greek authorities so that they can apply for asylum in another EU country if they succeed in continuing their journey. Greece reports for its borders that the number of refugees and migrants who have arrived has risen sharply this year. The government recently said that the northern border river Evros, there a good 36,000 illegal crossings were prevented when the water level was low in August alone. And overall, around 5,000 migrants made it across the river this year. At the same time, Athens is arming itself powerfully to ward off migration and is thus also causing fierce criticism. The Greeks are expanding a 35-kilometer long border fence on the Evros River by 80 kilometers. By the end of the project, the border with Turkey will be almost completely sealed off. Greek border guards and Frontex people patrol the coast of the Greek islands, which are close to Turkey's west coast. Human rights organizations repeatedly accuse Athens of illegal pushbacks. The Italian government won a vote of no confidence in the House of Representatives and, after sometimes chaotic negotiations, passed the budget law for 2023 through the parliamentary chamber. On Friday evening, 221 MPs initially expressed their confidence in the right-wing government of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. 152 were against. After a session that lasted hours until Saturday morning on the individual points of the budget law, 197 parliamentarians finally voted in favor of the project and 129 rejected it. Now the law comes into the Senate. It's to be discussed in the second chamber from December 27th and passed before the turn of the year. It would be a great success for Meloni to wrap up the household in 2022. In the past few weeks and days, there had been some violent upheaval and criticism from the opposition of the procedure. The focus is on measures against the energy crisis. Meloni wants to help families and companies because of the increased prices. One of the central points of contention was the government's forced abolition of the reddito di cittadinanza, a state support comparable to citizens' income or basic security. In 2023, this will only be paid out for 7 months for the unemployed. If you turn down a job, you lose it immediately. In the end, the negotiations were about whether or not this job offer had to be appropriate for the person's qualifications. In the days before the vote, comparatively smaller measures that were woven into the budget law caused a stir. These included, for example, the permission to shoot wild boar in cities or protected areas if the authorities consider this necessary for security reasons. In recent years, wild boar have made more inroads into urban areas. In Rome, for example, whole gangs are repeatedly sighting running into inhabited areas and digging through the rubbish there, and accidents also happened. In view of the impending high budget deficit and frozen EU aid worth billions, the Hungarian government has introduced a new excess profit tax for the country's pharmaceutical manufacturers. According to a government ordinance that appeared in the Law Gazette late Friday evening and came into force on Saturday, they should pay up to 8% of their net income to the state, depending on sales. The maximum tax rate applies to pharmaceutical companies with annual revenues of more than 150 billion forints, that's about 375 million euros net. The measure also applies retrospectively to 2022. As early as July of this year, Hungary's right-wing government introduced an extra profit tax to siphon off real or supposed excess profits from various sectors of the economy. Among others, energy companies, banks, insurers, telecommunications companies, and airlines are included. The business portal Portfolio.hu analyzed on Saturday that the government wanted to reduce the fiat high budget deficit with the new tax. For this year, Hungary's government had planned a deficit of 4.9% of gross domestic product or GDP. The EU Commission could withhold billions in subsidies for Hungary from the European Community budget due to constitutional concerns. A spokesman for the Brussels authority confirmed on Friday that the conditions for the payment of 22 billion euros by 2027 from the so-called Cohesion Fund to promote structurally weak areas are currently not met. Because of the insufficient fight against corruption in Hungary, the EU states have just frozen 6.3 billion euros in cohesion funds for the country. It is well known that Qatar plays a crucial role in the bribery scandal in the European Parliament. According to one report, however, Morocco was much more involved. Because according to a media report, Morocco played a bigger role than previously known in the bribery and corruption scandal in the EU Parliament alongside Qatar. As the German magazine Spiegel reports with reference to confidential investigative documents, the Moroccan Foreign Secret Service DGED was also involved at the highest level in influencing MEPs. According to this, the DGED is said to have recruited the two Italian MEPs, Pier Antonio Panzeri and Andrea Cozzolino, as well as Francesco Giorgi, parliamentary employee and partner of the deposed Vice President of the EU Parliament, Eva Kaili, as early as 2019. The aim was to influence the Social Democratic group in the European Parliament. According to the German magazine Spiegel, Abderrahim Atmoun, currently Morocco's ambassador to Poland, was responsible for leading the trio. In addition, the three Italians are said to have had direct contact with the Director General of the Secret Service, Mohamed Yassin Mansouri. The news magazine quotes Belgian government circles as saying that Morocco has recently shown its commitment to issues such as fishing rights and Western Sahara, which is largely controlled by Rabat. Overall, there is a suspicion that Morocco exerted even more intensive and longer influence than Qatar, both legally and illegally. Panzeri, Kaili and Giorgi are currently in custody. They are accused of criminal organization, corruption and money laundering. The Gulf Emirate of Qatar is said to have tried to influence the policies of the European Union. Qatar, of course, denies any wrongdoing. On December 15th, MEPs passed a resolution by a clear majority in which they strongly condemned Qatar for influencing the country. Morocco was not mentioned, although the role of the state should have been known. The left faction tried cautiously to add amendments to Morocco in the resolution, but the attempts failed. The Conservative Europeans People Party, including all German Christian Democrats present, voted against the amendment, so I would like from them to know if they knew about Morocco that time. The Greens voted unanimously in favor, while the majority of Liberals and Social Democrats voted against. And with that, another miserable year comes to an end today. And of course, we must not forget, especially today, how the people in Ukraine are suffering from Russia's criminal war of aggression. Let's all hope that 2023 finally has a lot of positives to offer for the people of Ukraine and for all of us. Stay optimistic and stick to the facts. Happy New Year. And next year it still will be I'll be back.